Hey guys, another video from Rage RC. I told you we'd be doing an update video on the shredder and the aluminum aftermarket components that we installed on it. So far, we have rear hub and carriers. Those are MPO-04s. These are the hinge pin brackets. MPO-06 and 7. One's a front, one is a rear. I have not put the front in yet. I will do that next time I crash it real hard and have to take it apart. I'm kind of lazy, so I figure, well, when it breaks, I'll fix it. But tonight's video is going to be about the front C-hubs. Basically, everybody knows that has a shredder that these plastic hubs wear out inside and you get this tremendous amount of slop in here. And they get all wobbly right here. You can see the actual steering knuckle moves in and out, up and down, side to side, all over the place. See all the movement? I've already done one side, just for sake of time. And I wanted to see how it all went together before I made the video. And as you can see, all that slop is completely gone. No up and down slop, no slop, period. No in and out, nothing. So this is going to take care of a whole bunch of control issues with these vehicles as far as stability on the road, on the track, bashing them, whatever you might be doing with them. They're just going to steer better, control better. And if you hit something hard, most likely that aluminum isn't going to break as easily as the plastic hubs do. Okay, quick parts that I'm going to be installing on this one. You do not have to install the front steering knuckles to do this project. You don't have to put new ones in. But I am, because they've been taken off and put back on so many times that the threads are starting to get worn out where they actually go in from the bottom and top of the C-hub. So, without further ado, let's get started. The first thing I like to do is I like to take the entire system out as a unit. And I'll explain why as I'm taking it apart. When you do everything as a unit with this setup, it makes it so the axle shaft and pins that go in the axle shaft don't fall apart while you're sliding it together, which can be really irritating when you're in the middle of working on something. So first you're going to disconnect your upper control arm. Obviously remove your tires and wheels. Second, disconnect your tie rod. And then third, there's a pin that goes through the C-hub and in through the control arm. There's a small set screw, which I believe is on this side right here, a grub screw that threads into the plastic to hold the pin in. They've changed this design a little bit on the aluminum C-hub, and I will explain to you exactly how that change has affected the way they go together, because it's slightly different. So let's go ahead and get that grub screw out of there. You're not going to need this grub screw. I'm going to keep it, put it in my spare parts. If somebody's got a shredder over here and they don't have the aluminum components and they just want to repair something that's broken, we're going to go ahead and allow them to do that and just give them the parts for free. Okay, so one little trick I've learned when I'm upgrading these parts, I don't have to get any special tools out other than pliers, a 2mm Allen screw or Allen wrench, and a 1.5mm Allen wrench. These are Apex tools. I got them off of Amazon. They're fantastic, let me tell you. We put them in the drill, we abused them, and haven't had any issues. So real quick, these pins are going to be different. The aftermarket pin for the aluminum setup has a cutout in the very center of it. The reason why that cutout is there, I'll explain here in a second once we get to taking it apart. I need a small Allen key. I have discovered over the course of working on these a small Allen key. The smallest Allen key you can get. It's fantastic for pushing these pins out. You can get right in there, you can push the pin right out. On the front side, on this particular model, it's hollow, but it's kind of caged in there, swedged so to speak, and it keeps the pin from sliding out. But if you just take the smaller Allen wrench, it'll slide right out. Now this whole entire unit's going to come out as an assembly. We're going to slide it off. Now we no longer really need the truck on the table, so I'm just going to come over to the bench and do all this here. So basically, the pins are going to be identical, other than one has the cutout in the center. Make sure you use the one with the cutout in the center when you install the new hubs. Do not use the old style or you will run into issues. Let's see here. We got to take this old steering knuckle. Well, actually, I don't have to take the steering knuckle off because I'm replacing my steering knuckle. if you are going to take your steering knuckle apart, which I will go ahead and do and show you for sake of instructions, you're going to take these screws out, and as you can tell, I've had to Loctite mine in a bunch, and I used red Loctite last time, I believe, because the daggone things kept coming loose. So as I'm taking it apart now, I'm destroying the threads. But that's how you're going to get your setup off if you haven't already destroyed it like I have. And then your steering knuckle will come out. But I am not going to be using any of these old parts, so we're just going to set these aside. That way they're out of the way. I have the hub extenders on mine, so there's an O-ring on mine. If you have used my link to get these hub extenders, they're fantastic. I haven't really had any issues with them other than the O-rings are kind of a pain to get out of the groove that they sit in, but that holds your pin in rather than the pin just being held in by the hex on the wheel. So we're going to push this pin out, and this pin's broken. Imagine that.
Nice.
Yeah. You did that a couple times, haven't you, Josh?
A few. More
so
than a few.
This may become an issue as far as taking this apart, which is okay. And I'll explain what you have to do to repair these once I get it apart. If this one's actually going to come apart, it may not want to. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this Allen key.
There it
Get
goes.
rid of the rest of that pin that's stuck in there.
That should come
Hopefully
off.
this will slide off.
Maybe not.
Okay, so now we're going to have to get a new pin, which I don't have any spare pins right now, but that's okay. They're down inside of all the parts down there, but I'll explain to you why this happens. I've upgraded my system to 6S. These pins just absolutely get destroyed when you start running 6S power. I haven't really
Like
found
that.
a great upgrade other than I've robbed some of the roller bearings out of some U-joints from work, and they seem to work quite well, but you got to make sure you get the right length and the right diameter. I know that sounds crazy.
It works though.
Alright, so next step, you're going to want to pull your axle shaft and bearings out of your steering knuckle if you're replacing yours. If not, you can leave all this in there. You can even leave your hub on, and you can go ahead and start the install for your new part. So this is jammed on here. I've learned a little trick on how to get these off as well. So I'm kind of happy we're running into some issues, because a lot of times people ask me, well, what do you do when you run into issues like this? Well, we stick it in a vise and we beat on it with a hammer. So
It works though.
that's how we're going to get those off, because I'm going to replace these bearings with better bearings. And also, I've got a lot of wear inside of this cup, and I'll show you what I mean. It's hard to see, but inside the cup, there's a lot of wear where the pin goes. I don't know if that's visible to you guys,
You can kind of see it.
but man, is it tore up. So, I'm going to continue to go ahead and do this. Let me get the parts out, and I'll show you what part numbers we have here. I may actually have a set in this box. Let me take a look. Just to make sure. This kit right here is the kit that I was talking about. It comes with the new hub extenders. A lot of people were asking me online, what's the part number on those? Well, that's the part number right there. Josh, you want to read that off to them? And if you'd like to, go ahead and read off all the part numbers that are sitting on the table.
I just showed a picture of it all.
Oh, you
All
did?
besides this one.
Okay.
Right here, the bushings.
These are your bushings, all your steering knuckle bushings. That is your pair of C-hubs, MPO-02. And then you got the BS 903-111. That is your steering knuckles. They do sell an upgraded steering knuckle, and I can't remember the part number offhand. I believe it's MPO-03, but I'd have to check to verify that for you. So onward. Since we're going to go ahead and replace the axle shaft, I'm going to go ahead and replace the bearings as well. We want to make sure everything is fresh in this build.
Tell them about with the bearings with the blue. The difference between
If you buy the aftermarket bearings, try to get the bearings with the blue seals in them. I think they're TBR bearings. I haven't had any issues with those as of yet. but I have destroyed a whole bunch of these factory bearings. They have absolutely come apart. Okay, so the hub extension kit comes with, it doesn't come with the lug nuts, I don't believe, but it does come with 4 hub extenders, 4 O-rings, 4 axle shafts, the stub axles, and 4 pins. This is a fantastic kit if you're wanting to get a little more width out of your shredder. Earthquake, backdraft, and aftershock. They all take the exact same hub extension. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty positive you can put this kit on the caldera and transfer it into a 17mm kit.
It does add a little bit of more stability in it, though, for sure.
Absolutely. Your truck lost a whole lot of body roll when we changed that over.
Yes. It is definitely worth the upgrade.
Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and just reuse my old shaft. Yeah, I know it's wallered out inside, but I don't really care. I'm going to run these until they absolutely come apart. Just simply because I don't really feel like messing with them. I'd rather just put them in. Run them till they're junk. Then replace them.
Literally right until the wheels fall off.
Well, you know, we've had that happen.
Right.
Sometimes it's from running into really hard objects. But...
Like a sign?
Okay, so the way I do this, and this makes it so much easier to install all of this in your truck, is you take your bearing and you slide it over top. Make sure your pin is completely installed and flush on both sides. And I pull out on this as I'm putting it together. I pulled out a little too hard that time, actually. Just keep a little pressure on it and slide your bearing over. Once your bearing's on, the pin isn't going to fall out of there anymore. Just keep the bearing against the machined edge on your stub shaft. Then you're going to take this, slide it inside of your new steering knuckle if you're replacing the steering knuckle, and I just pop the bearing in. They push in quite easy for the most part. If you ever have trouble with these going in, a lot of times there's mold marks. You can see the mold marks on the aluminum. Just take a pocket knife and scrape the aluminum out. They'll slide in. See, these went in fairly well. There's actually a small amount of play.
You got lucky with that.
A lot of times you can red Loctite these in place if you have fear of the outside of the bearing race spinning, because it can eventually chew up the hubs. But for like $6 or $8, you can just get new hubs, so I don't even mess with it. Then I slide my new extender or wheel assembly that you already have and put your pin in there. If you don't have the hub extenders, it's okay. Still go ahead and do this step. Put your pin in, make sure it's in completely and flush on both sides. And when you do that, a lot of times the best thing to do is just take a piece of electrical tape and wrap it around here. If you don't have this hub extension, your factory wheel hubs will not have a groove for an O-ring. The wheel actually holds the pin in. So I just take a piece of electrical tape and hold it on there, and then this whole assembly will stay together while you're assembling it in your truck. And you don't have to worry about this pin or anything falling out. I've seen some people struggle with that, so I thought I would share that little piece of advice with you guys. Alright, next, you fight this stupid little O-ring on.
Always.
Oh yeah,
Pain
you know how it
in the
goes.
ass.
Everything is. And once you get your O-ring in place, once you have the O-ring in place with the hub extensions, not your factory hubs, this isn't going to fall apart. It's not going to come out of there, which is fantastic. It makes it a whole lot easier for putting this damn thing together, and trust me, I've gotten frustrated with these in my own time. So, alright, so here's what we're going to do is we're going to bring this over here and I'm going to explain to you how this all goes together. The first step that you're going to have to do is put your bushings and your bolts in that hold the steering knuckle to the hub. And yeah, it looks like, man, there's an awful lot of play in there, and I thought the same thing. Quick tidbit for you guys. The long bushing, there's 2 length bushings. One's long and one is short. The long bushing and the long bolt go in the bottom of the hub, not in the top. Made that mistake before, destroyed a whole bunch of stuff. Don't do what I did. Terrible idea.
Very expensive mistake.
Well, you know.
Can be.
Sometimes the only way you learn is to make mistakes. So, you're going to go ahead and thread these in. And one thing I have learned is don't cram them in as tight as you can. You've got blue Loctite in there. So as soon as you feel them touch, basically just add about 1/8 of a turn. That blue Loctite will hold that in there. You don't have to sit there and tighten them down until there's nothing left of them. And see, this one here has a little bit of play that I'm not really happy with. So I'm going to pop that out of there and I'm going to use a different bolt. I know that this one bolt in here is a tiny bit shorter. If you have an issue with that, take a piece of sandpaper, put it flat on a piece of tape on your table, and you can take a piece of tape or duct tape and hold the sandpaper down, and you can file the end of that bolt down a little bit, and that'll take away that extra little bit of play that you've got. Before I take that bottom one back out, I'm going to explain the top to you. The top is the shorter bolt with the shorter bushing. Go ahead and get that threaded in place. And like I said, I've already got Loctite in the hole in the threads, so that should stay in place. Now the top one, since it's a little shorter bolt, won't go all the way through and crush the race on the bearing. You can see there's this tiny little gap right down there. If you thread the bolt too far through on the bottom, it'll actually crush the bearing race, and that's what has happened here. Is I have bottomed out against the bearing, but I haven't taken up all the slack in the bushing, so I have a small amount of play that I'm not real happy with. So what I'm going to do to eliminate that and get rid of some of that play is I'm going to take this out and I'm going to put the shorter bolt in. On the other side, it fit quite well. Sometimes with mold stuff like this, machine stuff that you get that's made, you know, not to the perfect standards that you would normally expect, you'll have issues like that. So I'm going to go ahead and just put the shorter bolt in here. And since I've already run my threads through the Loctite, I just want to make sure to go ahead and put a little dab of Loctite on here, just to make sure that it's not going to come off. I use blue, don't use red. Red won't come out. It will, but it takes heat for the most part, and you're going to be really ticked off at yourself if you can't get it apart. Anyways, then I take that and I run that in there until it goes snug, and then I just add a little bit there. And as you can see, with the bushings tight, that has taken up almost all that play. It's very minimal now at this point. And that minimal amount of play is just going to allow for free movement of the steering knuckle. So one more time, I'm going to go through and I'm just going to check and make sure these are as tight as I would like them. And as I said before, you don't have to tighten them as tight as you possibly can. Remember that this is aluminum parts. They're not steel like you have on a car. Alright, on this part here, oops, put it in the right direction. You're going to put this down, slide this in place here, and you're going to take your pin. On the back side, on the bottom, is where the small grub screw that comes with this kit goes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get that flat spot lined up the best that I can with that grub screw while I'm putting it together. And that's kind of complicated because it's underneath the truck, so you guys won't be getting a view of that. But just use your own discretion. Make sure that you get that grub screw facing down, the slot for the grub screw facing down. Slide your pin in. You may have to wiggle it around a little bit. Just kind of shake it and get it to go in. You want the pin to be as flush as you can on front and rear. Oh crap, you know what I did, guys? You're never going to believe this. I put my steering knuckle in upside down. Not funny, Josh.
It happens.
It does. Anyways, see, when you start doing videos for people and you make mistakes like that, you do things twice sometimes, which makes you feel like a complete moron, which is probably why that screw didn't fit.
So don't do what he just did.
Don't do what I just did. But it's an easy mistake to rectify. And there again, I'm going to go ahead and add another dab of Loctite on there, and I bet you this time around, I probably won't run into that issue of the bolt being too long, because it'll have the thickness of the steering knuckle that's correct. Kids are yelling for me already.
What, Grace? What, Grace? Well, hold on.
Kids are out there. You know how it goes, guys. You all have family members. And then, like I said, this is what this whole entire hobby is all about for me. I love spending time with my family. I love spending time with my kids.
I'm going to try to wedge it real quick to see what she needs. Hold on.
It's alright.
Alright. Well, hold on. I'll just put it here for now. There.
I'm going to go ahead and get these threaded in.
We'll see what she needs.
Alright, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to thread this new one in with the longer bolt that I initially should have put in to start with. And I wondered why it didn't go in like it did on the other side. Well, that makes perfect sense. There it is. Perfect. Alright, so just a little bit. Tighten it up just a little bit. Make sure that blue Loctite can set. And that takes care of most of that slop. Maybe just a tiny bit tighter. You don't want to crush the bearing race if the bolt is too long. Remember that. Alright, while he's out there, I'm going to go ahead and explain another thing to you. This tiny little grub screw is a 1.5 millimeter Allen wrench, and it is little. I'm not going to put red Loctite on mine. I'm going to go ahead, or blue Loctite even. I'm just going to go ahead and thread it in. And the biggest reason is I'm not a big fan of that kind of thing. Boy, that doesn't feel quite right. I think that grip screw's junk. I'm going to have to get a different grip screw. Bear with me for a second, fellas. I'll be back up. Alright, we're going to try to get a different grip screw.
Okay.
These are 2.5.
She bit the side of her cheek.
I know.
Okay. Alright.
Anyways, that other grip screw didn't fit, and neither does this one. It doesn't want to fit very well, but we're going to go ahead and see if we can't force it in there.
Yeah, if it don't fit, force it.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's not a good thing to live by, but if it works.
I'm going to make it work.
I was going to say, it looks like it's, you're making it. Probably just making some new threads in there or something. No big deal.
Yeah, that's the goal. Apparently from the factory they tapped it out with a little bit larger tap than what should have been used. That's the first aluminum component I've ever bought for one of these that's been misengineered. So I'm going to go ahead and
re-engineer it with
your
screwdriver.
With that screwdriver. I should drill it out, put a tap in there, and correctly do this, but
hey, we're doing it on the fly, man.
Doing it on the fly. So, alright, now that I have that done, if you ever have that issue, make sure to always get an index chart out and drill it to the correct size and buy a tap of the correct nature for that. Alright, so I'm going to slide this back in place for the second time. Get this put in place here. And make sure that flat is faced down towards where the grub screw sits. Get your pin to slide in place. Which I may have messed up the hole with the threads a little bit, but that's okay, because we have a hammer. And the pin is in place. We're going to go ahead and tip this back just enough on the bottom.
See if I can get under there a little bit to see.
To get the grip screw in place. Until I dropped it. Don't ask me how in the world I found that, because most generally I can't find anything when I drop it on the floor.
That's usually Kayla.
Alright, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to thread that grub screw in place and just snug it up good and tight. And that'll keep that pin from falling out. Other than that, guys, you reassemble everything that you took apart, put your new bolts in. They do send you with a longer bolt and a lock nut. The lock nut that they sent, I don't care for that. I'd rather use a regular nut. I have trouble with lock nuts before, so I just don't use them. I'm not a big fan of them, never really have been. I just use a standard nut and tighten it down snug to my liking, and pretty much that's the end of it. And the other thing is, I was looking at the way this is designed. And if you like, rather than use the outside hole, you can use the inside hole, which will shorten up the overall rod length, which will give you more steel inside of both of the plastic pieces, which is what I'm going to do on this side. On this side I did it the way it came, just for sake of showing you how it would go together. But on this side, I'm going to go ahead and put it together with it on the inside hole. And yes, I know that may change the articulation of the suspension a little bit, but for my sake, I would rather have the extra material inside of the plastic part of the hub. And I believe I'm going to have to thread that in with a screwdriver. It's not wanting to cooperate with me. Kind of like most things do around here.
Understatement.
So anyways, thread that in. Get your lock nut put on the other side. You should be good to go. Lock nut, put this back together, and you will have a finished product that looks like this right here. With the nut on it, bolt on it, and everything else. So we're going to get this put back together, guys. We're going to get a bash video in. And if you have any questions on any of the things that we've explained here, parts, part numbers, if you would like to get part numbers for those bearings, I will try to get those for you and make sure to put those on the comments. The part numbers are not on here anymore, but I did save them when I ordered them in my email, so I'll have to get those for you. If you guys have any questions on any of the upgrades that we've done on this truck or the shredder in general, don't forget to contact me or leave a comment. You can get a hold of me on RageRC on on Facebook. My name is Carsmith on Facebook, so if you guys want to go ahead and get a hold of me there, you're more than welcome to, and I'll answer any questions I can for you. Don't forget to subscribe, smash the bell, and like I said, enjoy your hobby, man. Play with your friends and family and your kids, and get everybody in the sport. It's a good thing to get you guys outside, and it's a good bonding thing. I think that it's more important right now in this day and age with the condition that this country is in, that people spend more time together and stop worrying about the country and the destruction that's going on around us. If people stand together and start building relationships like with hobbies like this, it's going to make the world a better place. Have a good night, guys. Thanks.